Chapter 61, Galahad's Brain Supplement. First more. Xiojia felt that he didn't quite figure out what was happening now. "What's wrong with you?" Seeing this happening to her own subordinate, Altria quickly walked over and asked with concern. "I have nothing." Galahad shook his head quickly. Then, he continued to ask Altria curiously, how did you draw the sword?" "Well, of course it is the task of His Royal Highness Morgan." Altria said it for granted. Galahad heard her say this and couldn't help but glanced at Morgan, who was unpredictable. The question was whether it was Morgan's body. He knew that before King Arthur drew his sword, he was just an ordinary knight attending a young man. Before holding the sword in the stone, he had no idea that he would become a king. So, before that, if Morgan talked to him, King Arthur might have been deceived. This woman, too strange, Galahad thought in his heart. At this moment, he found Morgan had seen himself, showing a cold expression, and then came to Lot's back. Did she see me looking at her? Is this telling me not to search again? Galahad speculated in his heart. At the same time, he was thinking, now that she knew that King Arthur could draw the sword in the stone. So, does she know her identity, or be a little bolder? In fact, because of her own appearance? And actually, Laughter is very jealous. He doesn't like people staring at him. HMPH, I'm satisfied with this pervert. If he dares to look at other women everywhere, I have to kill him. It won't happen, Morgan thought, hiding behind Lot. After taking a look at the time, Lot thought that this time Lancelot tried to assassinate himself and failed. Then, the nobles might begin to make large-scale objections. So Lot opened his mouth and said to the others, "Go back first. This matter cannot be resolved for a while. Let's go back and gather the soldiers first. If we face the enemy's attack, we can do it calmly." "Ready to come." "Okay." Of course, Morgan and others will not refuse this proposal. Especially Altria came out to ambush the defense for a day. It's time for dinner. As a result, everyone began to return to the direction of the Chalk City. In the process of returning, Altria found that Galahad had been watching her. When she and Galahad looked at others not paying attention, they asked Galahad, "Why are you staring at me like this? As a knight, you should be honest with your fellow robes." Seeing Altria looking at him like this, Galahad thought for a while and asked King Arthur, "That, Knight Altria, I want to ask, isn't it the sword in the stone you drew? You drew the sword in the stone and became the king of Britain. Shouldn't it be you?" "What are you talking about?" Altria frowned. "These are the arrangements of His Royal Highness Morgan. She only did this because she believed in my loyalty. If it wasn't me, it would be okay to replace it with anyone else." "Yes, if you were on the scene that day, maybe it was you who pulled the sword in the past." Galahad didn't know what to say. "Let me draw the sword. I don't have this ability." Sure enough, no matter which Morgan world it is, and nothing else, this deception ability is full. However, compared with the original world, although His Royal Highness Morgan in this world is not very good, he seems to be doing things for the purpose of justice. Afterwards, he continued to ask Altria, "So, what do you think of His Royal Highness Morgan's governance?" Altria gave Xiojia a weird look. "What do you ask so much for? Could it be that, is this specially arranged by His Royal Highness Morgan to come over for advice? If my answer is not good, His Royal Highness Morgan will turn his food into brown bread." "Of course it's very good. The aspects of fighting and governing the people are the same. We followed His Royal Highness Morgan and successfully defeated the humble king." Politically, His Majesty Lot was truly fair in the Chalk City, and very sympathetic to the people. In the Chalk City, the people's life feels much better than when King Arthur was. Altria was very honest, and then said flatteringly. What she said was indeed what she thought in her heart. However, it also means to please Morgan. Although the knight will not succumb to power, he can lay down a little bit of discipline when facing food. Altria thought. And hearing King Arthur said this, Galahad was also a little surprised. Is this really so good? He had seen the Chalk City governed by King Arthur before he appeared. That city, because there is no threat from the enemy and the people live in peace, he already feels good. Under Morgan's rule, Camelot, is it really better than being in the hands of King Arthur? On the other side, Morgan was also thinking about Galahad. She is not stupid. Of course, it can be seen that although this Xiojia is following Lot, he is not really loyal at all. We still have to find a way to let him work faithfully. He seems to be a very simple child. Well, we must find a way to make him loyal to himself and the dog. Okay, what can we do about it? Morgan remembered Nalot's inner thoughts just now. The dog knows that Xiojia is the purple-haired knight. Well, the kid named Lancelot. So, well, there is, Morgan thought in his heart. At the same time, she looked at Lot with an expression of liking in her eyes. Laughter can always give yourself more help. I looked around and no one noticed them. They were all guarding the surroundings. Lot. She patted Lot on the shoulder. Okay. Lot looked back. Morgan kissed him on the cheek. This is your reward. Okay. What reward? Lot looked at Morgan, confused. Didn't you give the reward for being a bait today? Wasn't she all tired and paralyzed last night? Why are you giving supplementary rewards now? After returning to the city, Morgan used magic to pass a word to Galahad. Then fighting against your father, your heart must be very uneasy. The voice reached Galahad's ears. He couldn't help his eyes widening. Really? She knows everything about me. Looking at him with a surprised expression, Morgan showed a mysterious smile. Same as what Sex Gouzi said. Some words only need to be half-talked. The rest depends on the opponent's brain supplement. Chapter 62 comes. Catch them all in one go. I wrote 2,000 words in 6 hours. Good card. Writing 2,000 words in 6 hours. It's stuck. Fortunately, I won't be able to write in this chapter. Sleep, everyone. Good night. Write more tomorrow. That Galahad wanted to open his mouth and ask Morgan about why Morgan would know his own affairs. Moreover, how did I come, and can I go back? However, he thought about it, and don't talk about it yet. After all, Morgan just chose magic to transmit information to herself, so it proved that she didn't want others to know. That's true. After all, I'm from the future, and there must be some secret hidden in it. Morgan will not let other people know about this kind of thing. Galahad thought in his heart. Forget it. Morgan still has important things to do. Your own business. Wait until later. Besides, when the nobles' rebellion may be resolved, I will be able to meet that guy again. Galahad remembered his father who had just met. The long sword in his hand clenched tightly again. I haven't enjoyed it just now. I still want to make another move. But according to your strength and vision, you won't be deceived again. Galahad thought in his heart. At this moment, Lancelot entered the Chalk City and began to investigate what Lot said just now. But this time when he looked at the Chalk City, he suddenly felt a prosperous breath rushing toward his face. The faces of the people are all smiling. This is completely different from what the nobles said before. In the process of walking, Lancelot also heard about Morgan and Lot's support for the development of industry and commerce in the city. You mean, if it weren't for your Highness Morgan to ask someone to provide you with interest-free loans, your shop wouldn't be able to operate? Lancelot stood in front of a shop and asked one of the shopkeepers. The shopkeeper nodded and replied to Lancelot, yes. Our previous goods were all taken away by the soldiers of Vortigern. If it weren't for His Royal Highness Morgan, we would have had no payment for the purchase. Lancelot felt that what the shopkeeper said was exactly the same as what Lot said to him before. Okay, so am I being deceived? Lancelot thought in his heart. At this time, he didn't notice. A pair of eyes were staring at him. This era is completely chaotic. The Lancelot Knight appeared in the Chalk City at this time, and has been too far away from the original situation. Fortunately, I still have the opportunity to correct this. Merlin looked at Lancelot, who was exploring everywhere, and said slightly, he will not give up his plan. In Merlin's mind, only by supporting his disciple Altria to become a king, can he continue the gods. I can't see Morgan and Lot clearly now, but he is not too worried. These are still controllable. Merlin thought so, and then looked at the city gate. There, it should be where they came back. Alas, to see Morgan and the others, you can only see them with the naked eye. Really tired, Merlin thought in her heart. He took the apple and looked at Lot casually. Well, there were 4 people when I went out. When I came back, it became 5 people. Who is the other one? What? Question mark. The smile on Merlin's face disappeared completely. He was really surprised now. Galahad, how could it appear? How could he appear here? He was just a little panicked about the previous events. And now that he saw Galahad, he was dumbfounded. The head is buzzing. This is impossible. It is impossible for him to appear at this point in time. What's happening here? As a magician who is familiar with everything, what is the most flustered? It is to break away from one's own speculation. The appearance of Galahad had completely dulled Merlin. Next, what should we do? No, it needs to be adjusted. When Lot and the others returned, they could already clearly feel that the situation in the Chalk City had become very tense. The nobles who took the risk have already begun to want to act. After seeing the assassination ineffective, they may have to take greater action. The nobles intend to mobilize soldiers directly to participate in the coup. Arriving in the city, Morgan looked at the soldiers coming towards them, and took Lot's hand. Oh, Lot. Let me tell you a joke. What joke? Lot asked Morgan. Someone actually wants to lie in wait for a hero who will give them victory, Morgan said with a smile. Lot looked at the soldiers and continued, so, they thought our victory was achieved by luck. But we have to tell them. Their idea is wrong. He looked back at Kay and Altria. The two of them gave Lot a relieved expression. At this time, the pedestrians around gradually disappeared. Instead, a group of soldiers in armor. The leader among them is the nobleman. His Royal Highness, Your Majesty Lot. Please return to Orkney. This does not belong to you. He spoke to Lot. I'm the only heir of King Arthur. Why is it irrelevant to me here? The nobleman immediately said to Morgan, but you are a woman. How can a woman become the king of Camelot? What can't be? As long as I do better than you, then it proves that I am qualified to be King Camelot. Morgan spoke. Okay, well said. If I can lie down and fish every day, that would be even better. Morgan heard this and glanced at Lot. Good fellow, never give up the idea of fishing. Laughter. You really have you. The nobleman heard Morgan say this and sneered. We have no plans to let you become the king of Camelot. We will find a suitable person to become the king of Camelot. After he finished saying this, he still stared at Altria who was standing behind Morgan. If you agree, We can easily do many things. You who drew the sword in the stone are not even interested in becoming a king. I am really convinced, the nobleman thought. After hearing this nobleman say this, Morgan just said with a chuckle, I have no plan to explain it to you. If you agree or not, I have no opinion. After all, the dead will not have any opinions without objecting. Morgan said to the nobleman. You. The nobleman stretched out his hand and pointed at Morgan. Don't point it to me, or I'll make you look good later. This was not what Morgan said, but Lot said. At the same time, he waved his arm. Come here, kill all these traitorous parties in one fell swoop, he said loudly. Chapter 63 is very important to me without you. First more. In the sight of everyone, Lot took out a whistle. Then he put it in his mouth and blew the whistle. Come, look at how my Jiang Mazi fights Huang Shilang. Lot still thought quite triumphantly while blowing. Morgan was full of question marks. These two seem to be names of people, right? But these two names are really weird. Lot, what are you thinking about? After blowing the whistle, the people around collectively felt the sound of cavalry riding on their horses. In the eyes of the nobleman, a large number of knights surrounded these noble soldiers. Altria saw these knights coming, squeezed her long sword on the ground, and put on a serious posture. These are all members of her Knights of the Round Table. Of course she must try to show herself and convince her subordinates. Pity. She is only a few meters tall. The people beside her, Kay and Lot, are both over 1.8 meters, and Morgan is also over 1.8 meters. Even if it is Xiojia, she is much taller than her. If she stood at the forefront of the team, there would be no problem at all. But Lot and Morgan are higher than her, standing in front of her. Kai is her righteous brother, so he stood by her side. As for Xiojia, he must think that he is going to stand behind King Arthur in his heart. Thus, she instantly became the center of the basin. Altria felt bad for a moment. The mentality collapsed. It's just that no one noticed her mentality at the moment. Morgan looked at Lot, and Lot looked at the nobles with panic expressions on their faces. Lot had a large number of knights, although in terms of quality, they were quite different from those of the Knights of the Round Table in history. However, in terms of quantity, it is not inferior at all. Now the enemies are all trash fish, and there is no difference in quality at this point. Now, do you still think you have the chance to win? Lot smiled and said to the nobles. The nobles suddenly panicked, although they have a lot of people, but all are infantry. The Knights of the Round Table exerted too much pressure on them. The knight is not a rider. You knew we were going to do this, right? The nobleman said to Lot and Morgan. Lot smiled and said to him, nonsense, if I didn't know you like this, why would I still go out if I had nothing to do? Do you think I was just going fishing? The eyes of the nobleman became even more ugly. Morgan looked at this situation and waved his hand directly. Come, wipe out all these noble rebels. Under her command, the Knights of the Round Table present simultaneously raised their hands with long swords. Seeing that he was about to be surrounded, the aristocratic man said to his men in a panic, don't be afraid, the number of each other is not more than us. If we are serious, we will not lose. Come, as long as you defeat the enemy in front of you, you will get rich remuneration. Hearing him say this, his men relaxed a little, and then renewed their fighting spirit, facing the oppression of the Knights of the Round Table. He didn't care so much. Yes, Lot heard him and said with a smile. Immediately, he looked at Altria, who was still a little depressed at the moment. Come on, let you set the victory for the first battle of the Knights of the Round Table. The chief of the Knights of the Round Table, Altria. With that said, he also felt a little absurd. In the original history, the Knights of the Round Table belonged to Altria. But now, she can only work for Morgan. He was surprised when he learned from Altria at the beginning that she had joined the Knights of the Round Table. Now, I'm used to it. Altria didn't feel like Lot. She only knows one thing now. It's time for her to act. Although he is short, his strength is definitely not bad. Especially since he has now got the sword in the stone, his strength is even more extraordinary. Now it's finally his turn to make a move, and it is absolutely necessary to prove himself to everyone. Taking vigorous steps, Altria rushed up. The nobleman's men were a little disdainful when they saw such a small man rushing over. They didn't see the moment Altria drew the sword in the stone, or, even if they saw it, they would just think it was Morgan's role. Several sturdy men rushed over, trying to get rid of Altria first. Then, all these people were chopped off by Altria. The noble soldiers were shocked. What strength is this? Altria didn't stay idle either, and continued to rush towards the nobles. The Knights of the Round Table also began to charge. Kay also rushed over. Galahad didn't even move. After all, he still has to defend against his own father who might appear. The noble soldiers faced the impact of these knights. The scene immediately became chaotic, but the situation still showed a one-sided posture. After all, even without the Knights of the Round Table, the strengths of Kai and Altria are overwhelming. The nobles are not without good swordsmen. They gather together to deal with Altria. But when these people join forces, they are also not the opponents of Altria, who is fighting at the moment. The joint attack of several people was easily resolved by Altria and defeated them all. She wanted to prove to Morgan, although she did eat a little bit more. But that is also very useful. Your Royal Highness, these enemies were all defeated by me. Have you seen them? Since Lancelot did not appear, the army of these nobles quickly failed. The leading aristocratic man was also caught by Kai. and was captured in front of Lot and Morgan. After being captured, the nobleman began to show ugliness. He begged Morgan and Lot for mercy. That, His Majesty Lot, His Royal Highness Morgan, I was wrong. I am willing to be loyal to you. I am willing to take out my money and land as a gift to the new queen. He and Morgan looked at each other and couldn't help laughing. Ah, the weakness of this feudal aristocrat, Lot complained in his heart. Then, Lot smiled and said to him, you nobles are not important to me, and your land is not important to me either. Then what's important? The nobleman asked stupidly. It's very important to me without you, Lot said meaningfully. Chapter 64 There is no hindrance to claiming the king. Second more. Just these nobles, are they worthy to talk to me about cooperation or non-cooperation? Huang Shilang really wanted to cooperate with Jiang Mazi at first. It's just that if Jiang Mazi compromises some things, then he will become Huang Shilang. Lot and Morgan never knew what compromise was. 1 is 1 and 2 is 2. Maybe it is not mature, and it may even encounter many difficulties. But the future is created by this group of idealists. The nobleman looked at Morgan and wanted to say something. But at this moment, Lot had already ordered the knights to take him down. A nobleman who has failed has no right to attract everyone's attention. There is only one person who dares to make trouble. After taking the nobles away, Lot clapped his hands. Well, we have solved all the obstacles. Next, we should go to see the remaining nobles. Alas, although things are really different from what I expected, Altria did not go to the stage to fight with Votagung, but instead wanted to fight them by myself. When will I be able to fight with them in my fishing career? Where to start? Morgan couldn't help but curl his lips. Good guy, Gouzi. Are you still thinking about fishing? It's so boring to fish. You don't fish. Why not touch me? You have to be a king. If you are a knight who works for others, you must be expelled. So, she rolled over and rode on the horse, following Lot back. Next, is the most glorious moment. Morgan was looking forward to it for a long time, and now he can finally come. However, she thought of her father, King Yasha, and she was also silent for a while. Father, your life is indeed honorable enough, and Lot and I will do better. With this in mind, Morgan had just walked a few steps. At this moment, she saw someone standing in the direction they were moving forward. It's Lancelot. Is it finally here? Seeing Lancelot appearing, Galahad was instantly energetic. He held the sword in his hand firmly. Are you still coming to fight me? Lot looked at him and said, come on, if you dare to fight with me, I'll just put Xiojia to kill you. No, of course not. I just apologize to you for the mistakes I made before. Lancelot shook his head and said, indeed, I was deceived by those nobles. Morgan asked him expectantly, so, are you willing to follow me and Lot? Morgan still looked forward to Lancelot's martial arts. Compared with my own dog, it is indeed a lot stronger. Lancelot shook his head. I don't mean to go after someone for the time being. Oh, Morgan instantly became colder. If you don't come to rely on me, why would I dare to come and talk to you? My dog loves me, speaks nicely, looks handsome. I am fine. What do I do when talking to you? A person who always gives up on women. As far as Morgan knows now, this Lancelot is the scumbag who abandoned Xiojia. Seeing Morgan's face-changing action in Sichuan opera, Lot couldn't help but enjoy it. My wife, that's a real reality. Morgan gave Lot a blank look. What's wrong? I just like this look. Feelings are for you alone. For others, I am just an animal of interest. Lancelot looked at Morgan like this, also a little depressed. My charm is good among men, right? At any rate, it looks a bit worse than Lot. And it's not worse than the others behind. Why did you come to Britain? Men hate me and women hate me. What's the situation? Lancelot thought of this, and looked at Galahad who was drawing his sword. Excuse me, how did I offend you? He asked Galahad. No, I just think you are a bit scumbag. Galahad said to Lancelot. Scum? Lancelot showed a puzzled expression. I don't even have a partner. Where did I go? Did I do nothing? Lancelot blinked, seeming to be expecting Galahad to give him a satisfactory answer. At this moment, Morgan looked at Xiojia and urged. Well, Xiojia, hurry up and follow us. Yes, your highness Morgan. Galahad nodded quickly, and followed Lot and Morgan. Only Lancelot was left in a state of confusion. Why is this? At this moment, in the area where the nobles are located, the remaining nobles are now plunged into a desperate situation. How dare they do it? Someone said in a panic. Regarding what the radical nobles did and failed, after they found out, they all fell into a state of panic. Who is Morgan? In their eyes, that is the person who will repay the Canthus. There is no reason. She must find a way to deal with the nobles. Now that they have a reason, they can't kill them all. We are wronged. We wanted to talk to His Royal Highness Morgan. Now good guys, those guys killed us all. Everyone fell into a state of panic. At this moment, they felt the sound of the cavalry surrounding their mansion. It's over. Our end has come. The nobles thought in their hearts. With this kind of mood, they collectively walked out tremblingly. After going out, they happened to see Morgan and Lot riding horses, looking at them condescendingly. The nobles' legs softened, and some knelt down. Now, I want to be the Queen of Camelot. Do you have any opinions? Morgan said vigorously. The nobles shook their heads after hearing this. No opinion. We have no opinion at all. As long as you can let us live. Morgan looked at it and couldn't help but smile. See, Gouzi is right. A window you want to open. You directly say that others probably disagree. But if you first said that the roof was demolished, then others would definitely want you to open the windows. This can be considered standing and taking the money. Lot watched the nobles succumb, and thought triumphantly in his heart. Morgan and Lot took a look. Well, up to now, Morgan's obstacles to the king's kingship have almost disappeared, and the general trend of becoming the Lord of Camelot is irreversible. As for the old fellow Merlin to stop him directly, the possibility is not too great. The old liar is an old silver coin. Chapter 65 Coronation as King 4K. We finally won. When he came to the unmanned room, Morgan took Lot's hand and said with excitement in his tone. Then, she felt that she couldn't express her happiness yet. He stretched out his arm to put his arm around Lot's neck, and then buries his head in his arms. Tilda. The smell of this facial cleanser is really good. Having been done this, Lot thought in his heart. Pleasing milk. Morgan froze for a moment. Then, she immediately understood what Lot was trying to express. Good for you. You fellow, are thinking about something bad again. Morgan grabbed Lot by the waist and said viciously. How is this possible? Lot quickly raised his hand to signal that he was wronged. Then, he said sincerely, I'm thinking about how your majesty the queen will become the throne. Morgan gave Lot a white look. You sucker, you really can do it. If it were not for me to see your heart clearly, I would definitely think what you said was true. Moreover, it wasn't my enthronement ceremony alone. Luke, and you, Morgan said to Lot. Lot pointed to himself. Moja nodded naturally. Yes, you told the nobles at that time that without them, it is very important to you. Then if it belongs to Camelot, it is also very important to me. Laughter. Since you are willing to give me everything you have, then I will also give all of me to you. This is called a husband and wife. Forget it, I'm an idle person. Lot refused subconsciously. However, he suddenly felt that Morgan was gripping his waist severely. Are you going to be the king of Camelot with me? Morgan widened his eyes and said to Lot. It hurts. Okay, can I just promise you that you can get it? Really, other people are worried about your power being divided, and you actually come and give power to yourself at this time. Lot was caught by his waist and quickly begged for mercy. It's pretty much the same. Morgan got a satisfactory answer, and finally put his hand down from Lot's waist. After putting it down, she reached out and put her arm around Lot's waist, and put her head on Lot's shoulder. She squinted her eyes, as if there was a stream of spring water in it. Then, she spoke to Lot. Well, Lot, we have to do the next thing for Camelot. What? Lot was puzzled. At this moment, Morgan put his mouth to Lot's ear and said softly, of course it is to give birth to the next generation of successors to Camelot. Okay? Lot was taken aback for a moment, and then reacted. Reaching out to hug Morgan's legs, the princess hugged him. Put Morgan on the soft big bed. Morgan touched the sheets. Well, it's strong enough, it shouldn't be torn apart later, she thought in her heart. Because Britain is still in war, the coronation ceremony has been simplified. On the second day, Morgan and Lot will begin the coronation ceremony. Morgan ordered people to clean up overnight. With generous rewards, the whole city is not said to be spotless, but it can also be completely renewed. It looks like a look anyway. At about 5 o'clock in the morning, the knights had already begun to move. They checked the street where the ceremony was held again, confirming that no one will come to assassinate Lot and Morgan, so that this ritual will become a laughingstock. The leading knight is Altria. At this moment, she is fully absorbed and will not relax a little gap. At this point, even Kai can't match it. At this moment, Kai was hitting Hash with a look of sleepy eyes. My dear brother, why on earth are you so diligent? I really don't get used to getting up so early. I said, elder brother, this is part of the night training. Don't have any complaints. Altria shook her head and answered Kai. Kai sneered, and then said, what night practice? I think it's because you got up in the morning and took care of an extra meal, right? When a knight is practicing, don't say anything extra. Altria said blankly. It's just that from her flustered eyes, it is already possible to guess what her mind is. Kai just laughed, and then continued to play. He finally knew why Lot and Morgan always liked to tease Altria so much. Because it's really fun. Behind the two people, Galahad was also watching the possible enemy situation everywhere. Mother, I'm afraid you didn't expect it. I actually appeared in the age when His Majesty King Arthur just drew the sword in the stone. Also, I now belong to His Royal Highness Morgan. While watching, he was still muttering silently in his heart. Regarding why he came, and the matter with his father, he has not had time to ask Morgan. Looking at the streets of the Chalk City, Galahad had a hunch in his heart. His father did not leave the city. They will meet again soon. After the Knights of the Round Table checked, they set up their positions on both sides of the road. Then, at about 7 o'clock in the morning, most of the residents of the entire Chalk City woke up. They also know that the Queen of Camelot will become Morgan today. Regarding Morgan coming to be the Queen, everyone's opinion is still very small. It can even be said that it is very welcome. After all, it is obvious to all that Morgan and Lot have ruled Camelot during this period of time. The people believe that as long as Lot and Morgan are there, Camelot will continue to develop in a good direction. I heard that Morgan and Lot are going to hold a coronation ceremony today, and they both stood in line on both sides of the road to welcome them. Some of these people are indeed childcare. However, more people took to the streets voluntarily to welcome them. And in one of the streets, there was a group of people with fresh clothes and angry horses. It's just that compared with those civilians, the bitterness on their faces can be seen by anyone. These are those Huang Shilang who knelt down to Jiang Mezi. In other words, it is the nobles who have voluntarily accepted transformation. Although they are reluctant, no one dares not to attend the ceremony at this time. After all, you are here. Morgan and Lot may not be able to remember. But if you don't come, Morgan and Lot will surely know. By the time when the nobles saw this scene, they couldn't help shaking with fear. At noon, the ceremony officially began. The knights in charge of etiquette held up their long horns, suffocated their breath, and then blew them hard. A deep and long voice rang. Then, a certain white-haired magician released his magic on the tallest tower in Camelot. The whole Camelot seems to be a stage with flowers. Oh, if the protagonist of this scene is my poor helpless but edible apprentice, it would be great, Merlin said to herself while performing magic tricks. Now there is no way to change things. So if you make trouble at this time, apart from causing some trouble, the society will not change. And just to make some trouble, Merlin absolutely disdained to do it. Therefore, he honestly went to help Lot and Morgan's coronation ceremony to release the magic. Be a very competent special effects artist. Of course, he still has another job, which can only be completed later. In this environment surrounded by flowers, our two masters are finally on the stage. The gorgeous carriage pulled Lot and Morgan out. Both of them put on ceremonial costumes. Lot wore bright silver armor and a cloak behind him, with Orkney's badge engraved on the cloak. The long golden hair was scattered behind his head, showing handsome cheeks. By his side, Morgan put on a blue evening dress. His hair was tied behind his head. His beautiful face was covered with a veil, and only a pair of majestic eyes were exposed. It's just that, in his heart, Morgan thought like this. Looky, why do you show such an affectionate expression? I can only show the majesty of your affection. Mom, it's really tiring to keep it like this. I really want to laugh like Lot, but it doesn't work. Really tired. The people burst into cheers when they saw Lot and Morgan appear. People's hearts are on Morgan's side. Among the people, Lancelot narrowed his eyes and looked at Morgan and Lot standing on the carriage. He did not leave the chalk city before things were clear. As a knight with some reputation, he would not go because he knew that if he left, the bad reputation would be passed on forever. Even if it is my own various excuses, it will be ineffective. Looking at these two men, he muttered silently in his heart. What is the situation? What is the hatred between me and the white-haired knight, so that he saw me as if he saw my father and the enemy? Can you explain it to me clearly? I became a scumbag. I have never been in a relationship, nor have I had any relationship with anyone. Where do I go? Lancelot was very melancholy. In such happy days, Lot and Morgan did not notice Lancelot who was in the crowd. Lot's mind is already full of various queens. Play. Where would I think of anything else? Morgan, who was next to him, had a slight reddening on his face, and he strongly restrained his urge to hack someone and then go to be a widow. Sexual dog. Did you think how to get it dirty when I wore it? You won't wait any longer. In the evening, I wear this pair, so don't you just let you do it whatever you want. Then how do you do it? Morgan thought in his heart. Then the carriage began to move. Morgan and Lot rode in a carriage along the long street, showing their handsome and beautiful faces in front of the people. The expressions of envy and jealousy appeared on the faces of ordinary girls and youths of this era. He is handsome, beautiful, rich and powerful, and is now King Camelot. Real. Is there any reason? Some people were born in Rome, and some people were born that day. Lot and Morgan circled the city, and then they came to the largest church in the chalk city. The nobles lined up to welcome, and the priests are also in a line to greet. It's okay, it's not bad at all. In Camelot, although the gods are respected, the teaching power is not greater than the political power. Well, it's pretty good, Lot commented in his heart. Hearing Lot's comment, Morgan glanced at the pastors who were flattering. Then he gave them the task of supporting the frontier in his heart. What the dog thinks, I absolutely can't make it happen. Then, several people pushed the door open. At the end of the room, Merlin held 2 crowns in his hands. Come on, let me put a crown on you. Seeing Lot and Morgan, Merlin smiled. Generally speaking, the one who wears the crown to the king must be his elders. After all, you have to bow your head when you wear a crown. Although Merlin won't make trouble, it's good to take advantage. And because he is a national teacher and the closest courtier of the former King Yaozef, no one else is more suitable than him. Good guy, you white hair want to take advantage of me? I will make you wish. Lot looked at such a proud Merlin and thought in his heart. Morgan glanced at Lot and nodded slightly. Yes, Merlin must not be allowed to take advantage of this. Merlin was still smiling and waiting for Lot to come over. Then, he saw Lot walked over directly. Then he walked in front of Merlin, reached out and grabbed the crown. Bring it to you. To win the crown from a human hand, what Napoleon did, Lot can't do it. Lot thought in his heart. Merlin was still smiling, but she was a little helpless. Everyone was surprised when they saw it. Looked at Lot stupidly. After taking it, Lot passed one of the crowns directly to Morgan. "Come on, wear it. This crown is not given by anyone, but we brought it by ourselves." Morgan nodded vigorously. "Sure enough, it deserves to be the dog of our family. When it should be hard, it will never be soft." Seeing these two men put on the crowns themselves, Merlin whispered to Lot, "This is not traditional." "Morgan and I, when are tradition-keeping people," Lot said in the same low voice. Merlin smiled helplessly. Morgan agrees very much." At the same time, she had to open her mouth to ridicule Merlin to help Lot. However, after she spoke like this, she suddenly felt a strange feeling. "It was disgusting in my throat. There is a feeling of nausea." "Oh." In the sight of Lot and Merlin, Morgan retched. Chapter 66. Double happiness coming. First more. "What's wrong?" Seeing Morgan's nausea in this way, Lot was very worried at first. But after that, at any rate, Lot, who had not seen various TV series and medical publications less in his previous life, still didn't understand what happened. Morgan is going to have it. There was a burst of ecstasy in his heart. "I'm going to be a father?" Of course, this was not the time I was pregnant. However, except for yesterday's time, Lot and Morgan were not idle at all except for a few days on certain days. Just like other newlyweds, they can't wait to break their bed every day. If you think about it, Morgan, a well-developed girl with the blood of King Yausa, and a height of over 1.7 meters, can't stand it. You can imagine how often the daily frequency is. If not pregnant, Lot should doubt whether he had any problems with his body because of his crossing. There was still a burst of nausea on Morgan's side, and then she heard Lot's heartfelt voice. "To be a father?" Then what he meant was, "I have it?" Morgan was also a little surprised. After all, she is just a girl under 20 years old. Although he kept saying that he would give Lot a child, but if he really said it was such a day, he would feel at a loss. However, out of his own instinct, Morgan subconsciously put his hands on his lower abdomen and made a protective posture. "If what the dog is thinking is true, then the child in my stomach should be called Gul, right?" "Wait, don't be so sure," Morgan hurriedly said to the people around him. "Come, go and call the doctor." Lot saw it and quickly stopped it. "What is Western medicine like in this era?" "That's the French army of World War II. The food is home. Healing people can only do three things: bleeding, or bleeding. If this is to treat my precious Morgan, then if something happens, I must blame myself." "World War II? What kind of war is that?" "Was the French army very poor at that time?" Morgan blinked, puzzled. But she knew very well that Lot was totally uneasy about the doctors of this era. "Well, it looks like he will also learn from Lot to transform medicine in the future. This Camelot has a lot of things he can't understand. So in the future we will slowly reform." At this time, Lot also thought of someone to find out if Morgan was pregnant. "Mr. Merlin, this is for you. You should be able to investigate your magic, right?" Lot said with a smile. Seeing Lot smiling like this, Merlin also felt a kind of depression. "This Lot, in some respects, is really more suitable to be a king than my disciple. His face is really thick. When I'm useless, it is an old liar, a white-haired liar. And when he is effective now, he will become Mr. Merlin." However, he really couldn't refuse Lot's request. Of course. Merlin nodded in agreement. Then he performed probing magic and checked Morgan again. After the inspection, he smiled and congratulated Lot and Morgan. "Congratulations, you are going to have your first child." Merlin's smile became a bit bitter again. "The appearance of this child is a bonus to Lot and Morgan's rule. Although I have been prepared." But after hearing Merlin's affirmative answer, both Lot and Morgan fell into a state of ecstasy. "Child? I am going to have a child." In this era, having one's own offspring is a very important thing, especially for Lot. What do Huaxia people pay attention to most? Of course it is inherited. Even if he is already in Britain at the moment, he still values these very much. What's more, who are Morgan's children? "Gawain, my child Gawain, I will do my best to teach you well. At that time, I want you to be stronger than Lancelot under ordinary circumstances, so that there will be no tragedy in your life." Lot swears in his heart. Morgan tilted his head to listen. "I couldn't help but vomit in my heart." "Hey, I said sex. Are you a little too anxious?" "The child in my stomach is estimated to be less than a month old. Not even born." "You are already counting to surpass that knight Lancelot. His strength is very strong. If this exceeds him, that's some exercise. But this is also good. At least if the dog is willing to increase the combat effectiveness of his children, he will definitely raise his enthusiasm." Morgan thought in his heart. The news that Morgan has a baby isn't just that Lot and Morgan are happy. She and Lot have children, which is something worthy of making Camelot happy. And, the most important thing is, when the child appeared, this is today when they have just become King Camelot. What is this double happiness? The new king is enthroned, and Camelot's heir will be there again. Come on, tell me, this is not a surprise, but what is a surprise? Kay saw this situation, smiled and said to Aldra next to him, before there were some people who had opinions about Majesty Lot and Majesty Morgan becoming kings. Now in this day, there is news that they have heirs. It can be said that this is a blessing from the gods, and is the recognition of His Majesty Lot and His Royal Highness Morgan as the Lord of Camelot. Yeah, This is indeed the case. Altria nodded in agreement. If Lot had heard Kay say this, he would have strongly opposed it. What does this have to do with the blessing of the gods? These are the results of my own hard work. It's just that this kid will be a little depressed in the future. At this moment, Kai smiled and continued to speak to Altria. Why? Because, Kay pointed to Lot and Morgan. The two sires are young and strong people. At that time, the identity of this heir may be going to last a long time, he said with a smile. Altria said nothing. But it does feel like this. The world may really have a prince of 50 or 60 years. Galahad saw this scene and thought inwardly, this should be the knight of Gul, right? When I went to the Chalk City, he was already a famous knight. Now that he can see him just appearing, it's really amazing. The others didn't have as many Kai and others thought, they just felt a feeling worthy of happiness. Double happiness is coming. With the appearance of this child, and the coronation ceremony of Lot and Morgan was held. Camelot is about to enter a new era. Chapter 67 New Era, New Challenge. Second more. How glorious is the appearance of Lot and Morgan ascended to the throne. Then they will be embarrassed about what they will do afterwards. Before, they only had the ownership of the Chalk City, so everything dealt with was the Chalk City. The rest of Camelot is out of autonomy. The locals are in anarchy, relying only on local lords to rule. Now that Lot and the Morgan became the king of Camelot, all other things in these city territories also came to them. In particular, Lot and Morgan had also cleared out a large number of nobles before this, leaving a large part of their territory vacated. Since there was no lord in these territories, everything was handed over to Lot and Morgan. Many things. There are piles of parchment for reporting things every day, almost burying the desk. At this time, Lot couldn't help but admire the Emperor Ming Taizu and Emperor Yongxing in his previous life. Regardless of the position, at least the two of them spend a lot of time every day to personally deal with a large empire that is bigger than Britain in Tongliao. Both myself and Morgan deal with it together, and both feel very tired. It's uncomfortable. Lot, go and rest. I'll take care of this myself. Morgan put his chin on the pile of parchment, and said to Lot, who was almost unable to open his eyes. This is really embarrassing for him. In normal times, he would fish as long as he could and would never do so many hard things. Now let him work like this for a day. It is all because of his own wishes. Seeing that he was already so tired, Morgan was of course very distressed. So she asked Lot to go to bed first. It's you who should sleep, Morgan. You go to rest. After all, there is our baby in your belly. To protect his healthy development, you still have to rest. Lot shook his head and said, furthermore, even without Gul, I don't want you to be too tired to see Morgan. But I can't admit this. I want to take her to fish, not to work for her. If this is said, she has to take me to do many things. When the time comes, I am afraid that I will not be exhausted. In addition, what is the effect of taking an early rest? I might as well do more and then fell asleep on the bed. In this way, I save myself uncomfortable. Oh, grievance. After Morgan now has a child, in order to avoid miscarriage, there are some pleasant things that can't be done. Alas, but Lot is still looking forward to Morgan's shy expression in the queen's clothes. But on the day of her ascension, she was found to be pregnant. Then, what Lot was expecting was nothing. Or, it can only be done after at least 10 months. Even during a period of pregnancy, it is fine. But Lot, who loves Morgan, will not do this, and it will save you accidents at that time. As for other noblemen in this era, they must either go to the prostitution, or find the maid, or find their lover. He can never do it. I am a soul that is incompatible with this era, and I always have some characteristics. It is normal for people to have desires, and Lot's own desires are much greater than ordinary people. However, he is very clear that there is an important factor of love above desire. I wouldn't do things that sadden Morgan. A scumbag will always have his own desires to make excuses for himself. But one difference between humans and animals lies in restraining their desires. Hold back, although it is really uncomfortable, but it is not unstoppable. To beat, it's only 10 months. So Lot now wants to find something and forget about it. Hearing Lot's voice, Morgan lowered his head and smiled. This color dog, it's really colorful and dogmatic. I don't want to work, I just want to. Why I think so. I'm almost contagious by the dog. However, although he is like this, I like it very much. My dog is really a rare good man in this era. So, should I try something that I didn't agree to before? Morgan thought in his mind that he overheard Lot's thoughts before. How to describe it? That kind of gameplay was something she had never heard of before. Before I got married, I had heard other noble women talk about things between men and women. But compared with Lot's idea, that is really insignificant. He could think of so much, and Morgan could only be attributed to how rich the imagination of the virgin was. Immediately after, she remembered how shame it was. His face became flushed, and there could even be steam coming out of the top of his head. She looked at Lot and said, let's do it. You continue to deal with government affairs, and I will be watching you by the side. Look at me, won't you go back and rest? Lot asked somewhat puzzledly. Morgan held his cheeks and looked at Lot. Didn't you tell me that when a woman is pregnant, she wants to do something to make herself happy? So, What do you mean? Looking at you makes me very happy, Morgan said with a smile. Lot had only one feeling for Morgan's reaction. My Morgan is so cute. That's fine, you sit by and watch your husband and I will handle these government affairs perfectly. Lot raised his enthusiasm. Morgan gave him an encouraging look. Then Lot began to continue to deal with government affairs. Things in the Chalk City are okay. After all, this is the capital of King Arthur. Before, in the capital, nothing is bad. But when he saw the things on the territory outside the Chalk City, his smiley expression began to freeze. Actually, Britain has entered a dark age long ago. Because of the emergence of Votagung, the Chalk City has not been defeated, but fighting has already become a part of daily life. It is not a rich land, and the crops on the island are quite scarce. People's lives are getting poorer, and it is obvious that if this continues, they will destroy themselves in the near future. Especially above the territories of those nobles, it is more serious. Hey, it seems that the King of Camelot looks at glory, but the pressure to face is really great, Lot said softly. Morgan looked at Lot with a smile at first, but he immediately changed into a solemn expression. Cannot help but show concern. Looky, what's wrong with you? She asked anxiously. Chapter 68, Husband and Wife, Never Defeated, First More. Hey, what do you tell me to do? Lot was depressed when Morgan said this. Laughter. Doozy, forget it. You even talked about with me. Have you ever seen a dog who looks only to you? I am really wronged. You are really only stubborn to me. But that's too sultry to me. I like it and I am scared. This is just a nickname. A nickname? Didn't I just call you a dog because I like you? Morgan put his chin in his hands and said to Lot, can't you change a nice nickname? For example, the handsome husband in the world, the most beautiful man in the world. I am not picky. Lot thought for a moment, then answered Morgan. Morgan rolled his eyes when he heard him say this. You are not picky, are you really shameless? Although, it seems that the problem is not big. Morgan thought about it. The other beautiful men he had met, whether it was Kay, Galahad, or Lancelot, were worse than his husband. What about a simpler one? For example, your husband? Or for example, darling? You see, next time you subconsciously call me to show off, and let others listen to it, what should you do? Lot continued to advise Morgan. It's too numb, I don't like it, Morgan said disgustingly. Then, she felt that this was not so good, thought for a moment, and said to Lot, if you are outside in the future, I will call you darling or something, and give you enough face. But if I wait until behind, I just call you casually. Call it what you love behind your back, Lot said irritably. But the title of Sex Gouzi was also acquiesced. After getting this satisfactory answer, Morgan smiled. Hey, that's it. And at this time, she heard Lot think a little depressed in her heart. My wife came up with such a nickname, I should reflect on it. Alas, dog, what are you reflecting on? I didn't say you have a problem. Morgan subconsciously wanted to tell Lot that he liked him very much. I'm so upright, I'm really sorry for this nickname. Luscious. Morgan now wants to give Lot a bite. Forget it, if he doesn't look good, it's not him. Okay, let's talk about your news just now. What did you see that surprised you like this? Morgan hurriedly asked Lot what the problem he had seen before was like. Why are you so surprised? This. Hearing Morgan's words, Lot's smiling face disappeared in an instant. He picked up the document he had just seen and handed it to Morgan. Come on, look at these. What? Morgan picked up the file, then looked at the value on it. Her expression is also ugly. If she is not clear about these things before getting married, then after Orkney has mastered government affairs, she can say very clearly about land production and the like. This output is really too low. Is this only one place, or is it the whole of Britain? Morgan asked Lot. Except for the Chalk City and Orkney, this is the case everywhere else. Lot said, the Chalk City is a place where King Arthur worked so hard, and Orkney is my site. So the problem is not big. But in other places, the problem is very serious. Morgan's expression froze. Those nobles, why haven't you told us this? She asked in disbelief. Nonsense. The reduction in grain production cannot be reduced to their heads. It is only the people who suffer, and no one will see these things. Fatty pigs who have drunk the water will never notice the mayflies who live on water. Lot thought in his heart. Morgan was silent. At this time, she recognized Lot's thoughts even more. Nobles, it really doesn't work. But now is not the time to engage the nobles, she asked Lot. Looky, what should we do? Lot doesn't care about the title of Sex Gouzi. He began to think about ways to come. The reason why the British land is so barren is that those nobles are only a small part of it. On the surface, the more important part is that the soil caused by the war for many years is not good. Of course, the most important reason is the disappearance of the gods of the entire world, and the consciousness of this world is to make the Britons perish. Morgan's eyes widened. She knew the reasons for the nobility in the war, but she still just knew about the diminishing of the gods. This world does not allow Britons to appear. Are we destined to perish? No, I will never let this happen. Sex Gouzi has something to say. Man will conquer the sky. No matter how big the difficulties the sky creates for us in Britain, we can solve them as long as we work together. Morgan heard Lot say this, and vows secretly in his heart. At this time, Lot continued to think. The laziest way is to give the mess to Merlin and Altria, let them figure out a solution, and then I will solve the endgame with Morgan after the gods fade away. If it had been before, I would have thought this way. But now I would not do it, making Morgan feel that his efforts have been completely wasted. After hearing the first half of Lot's sentence, Morgan just wanted to vomit, but after hearing the second half, he showed a satisfied smile. Okay, an industrious dog, but not as good as a dog who wants to be lazy, but struggles for himself. Laughter. Don't worry, our husband and wife are the strongest when we work together. Morgan and Lot never defeat. Then, I can only find a way to increase production. The reward farming war one did before was just one of the ways. But the most important thing now is to solve the top priority. Yeah, it must be the urgent task. Our food is now somewhat insufficient. We will wait until later the gods' generation has faded. Only by dealing with the present can we have a future. Morgan, how about we go fishing? Lot said to Morgan. Fishing? Morgan frowned and said to Lot. Lot, I know you like fishing very much. But don't worry about your little bit of fishing at this time. Who told you about fishing? Lot made an expression that you were not good enough. I mean, develop marine fisheries. Let the people supplement their food with marine fish. Chapter 69 The Loyalty of Galahad. Second More. Ocean. Morgan was taken aback when he heard Lot's words. Go fishing? Yes, so many fish resources in this era. If we don't use them, are they just wasted like this? Lot said naturally. The geographical location of Britain in some places is better than Lot's motherland in his previous life, especially in terms of marine resources. He learned geography in junior high school, but there is a huge fishing ground near England. The fish here are caught, although it cannot be said that the problems encountered by Britain at the moment can be completely solved. But it's okay to postpone some urgent needs. Let's get over this difficulty first. Okay. Morgan frowned and thought. It seems that what he said is not unreasonable. But, we haven't done this before? Morgan still hesitated. Although Britain is an island, the British people of this era are all engaged in farming, going to capture fisheries. This has not really been done yet. I said Morgan, don't you forget how we defeated Votaging? We can transport the soldiers, so why can't we transport the fish back? Lot cheered Morgan. Okay. Morgan nodded slightly. Anyway, Sex Gouzi has said so you have to do it yourself. If you follow what the dog thinks, this Britain is facing the decline of the gods. Then, if we simply look at the land, we will definitely fail. Only brave innovation can be done. Morgan touched his belly. She silently said in her heart, this era will never end in the hands of me and Lot. At that time, your mother and I will definitely give you a big empire for you to inherit. Made up my mind. Then, she said affirmatively to Lot. Okay, Luscious, let's do it. Lot smiled when he heard Morgan's affirmative tone. At this time, his narrow mind rose again, and he said to Morgan, what to do? Of course. Morgan said halfway, and immediately reacted. Lucky. She turned around Lot's waist. Seeing Lot raise his hand to surrender, he put his hand down in satisfaction. Clapped his hands. Well, let's rest early, Morgan said to Lot. Then, watching Lot, who was already late at night, hugged Morgan and walked to the bedroom. It's time to sleep. Although, it's vegetarian. Things about fishing are ready to be done. However, there are still many things to be dealt with before implementation. For example, this Galahad thing. He lived in the Chalk City for several days, and finally couldn't bear to go to Morgan. His Royal Highness Morgan. In the hall of the palace, Morgan, wearing a veil, received Galahad. Secretary Galahad, what do you want? Morgan asked him lazily. However, at this time, she was a little flustered in her heart. It's over. I have forgotten about this during this period of time. Nothing has been asked about Xiojia from Gouzi. Now he came to ask himself. What should I do? Laughter. Come over to me quickly. Such a good thug. If we missed it, it would be too bad. What to do? Well, it can only be hard installed. Do you know who I am? Galahad asked Morgan seriously. During this period of time, he inquired about an important matter from Altria. The Knights of the Round Table in this world was established by Morgan. Hearing this news, the shock to Galahad was no less than that of the current King Arthur, who was just an immature knight who liked to eat a lot of food. And for the mastermind of all this, Morgan, Galahad felt her unpredictable even more. She must know something. Otherwise, she would not have named the knights. When Galahad approached Morgan today, he came with a mentality of looking at the boss in his heart. Morgan thought about it. Well, the dog should know. Then round it up. I know it. Of course, if you don't know your identity, how could I let you join me in the Knights of the Round Table? You know, the Knights of the Round Table, not everyone can come in. Morgan said to Galahad. Yes, if it weren't for your combat effectiveness, I would never let you join our Knights of the Round Table. Galahad listened and nodded subconsciously. Yes, I was originally a member of the Knights of the Round Table, so she asked me to join the Knights of the Round Table. Of course it was reasonable. Then he continued to ask Morgan, Your Majesty, what does my arrival have to do with you? Your arrival? Morgan's smile even worsened. Why did you come here? Didn't you just call for a dog? Does it matter to me? Could it be said that you were picked up by the dog? How should I answer? Well, of course, if it wasn't to meet you. Do you think Lot, the dignified king of Orkney, would appear in the suburbs? Morgan replied to Galahad. Galahad opened his eyes wide. It turned out to be true. Am I really brought out by His Royal Highness Morgan? Then what's your purpose in finding me? Galahad continued to inquire. I am looking for you, of course, to kill someone. Just how to explain it? Well, Morgan began to develop his brain quickly, thinking of Lot's words. Britain, God's generation, Galahad, Lancelot. Well, there is. She found a good-sounding reason for herself. Of course it is to change my own destiny. Galahad, I am not willing to my end, so I have to change all these. God's generation is destined to let the demise of Britain. That is the ending I absolutely don't want. So, I must change. In Galahad's ears, it was another meaning. Morgan knew she would lose Camelot's throne under normal circumstances. She knows everything, and she is not reconciled to this fate. Therefore, she did these things. Galahad thought in his heart. At the same time, he also thought of himself. Now that Morgan's fate can be changed, so can the fate of others. Yes, at this time my father has not yet met his mother. Everything has a chance to change. He swears secretly in his heart. Well, I want to change this thing. He thought in his heart. Follow His Majesty Morgan and Lot. I went to get the vaccine today. Take a day off. Like the title, Bayama went to get a vaccine today. I thought that there should be no big problem, and I can update it when I come back. But I really feel tired after the fight, and I can't concentrate. Maybe the side effects are a bit big, and I didn't go to bed until 6 o'clock in the morning. I slept for less than 4 hours. So Bayama rested earlier. Ask for a day off and try to update as early as possible tomorrow. You haven't seen pictures or anything. Chapter 70 Sex Gouzi. Didn't you expect it? First more. Galahad confirmed in his heart that Morgan had something to do with him. Then, he asked Morgan about his most concerned questions. Your Majesty Morgan, I want to ask you, where is my father now? No matter what you want to do, the place where your father is now is the most important thing. He wanted to ask Morgan to find out exactly where Lancelot was. Knowing where he is, he can act accordingly. Nothing can be changed even if it is. If my father and mother still can't be happy, so at least, let yourself go to fight Lancelot, and then come to relieve yourself. When Galahad said this, the expression on Morgan's face was slightly unnatural. Where is your father? How could I know? I don't even know who you are. Where did you go to know your father? He will find it naturally. Morgan glanced at Galahad and said meaningfully, we'll find it naturally. I don't know exactly what time it is. Maybe 3 days, maybe 30 years. Anyway, as long as you find it, then I am not a liar. According to Lot, what is it called? Paint pie. Hope plum to quench thirst. Anyway, let's talk about it first. What did Galahad say? This year just came of age, and also very pure. Facing Morgan's words, he actually believed it without any doubt. Yes, Majesty Morgan, I see. Galahad nodded and answered Morgan. Okay, since you know it, it's fine. Next, you can live in Altria's Knights of the Round Table. If you have any questions, you can come to me again. Although, I may not be able to help you. Yes, Xiojia left with a little gratitude. Although he didn't get the answer he wanted today. But, after all, let him know what to do next. Morgan watched Galahad finally left. Can't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Mom, I'm so difficult. This thing is still really difficult to do. No, I still go find comfort. Morgan thought this way. Then, he went to find Lot. Hey, dog, I'm here Tilda. Morgan came quietly behind Lot. At this moment Lot was still dealing with various government affairs with his head buried. Damn, I suddenly felt that I shouldn't behead the nobles. Okay? Morgan heard Lot's footsteps stopped. How? Do you feel wronged against them? No, I remember that you hated those nobles very much. I should hang all those nobles on the street lamp. Oh, no, there are no street lights in this world. Should they all hang on the mast, so that everyone can see their fate? I just said, you won't be so kind. These nobles squeeze the people in their own territories to their heart's content, and deceive the king if they can deceive, defraud if they can defraud, and don't build infrastructure at all. Even if there is no generation, this era has to be ruined by those nobles. If you want to be rich, do you have to build a road first? I said that when Votaging came over, it was difficult for those guys to form support. This level of road construction certainly cannot be supported. Unfortunately, it is unrealistic for Morgan to do it now. Let's wait until our ability is reached. Do you build roads? In addition, the entire British road was pierced through, and when the time came, he would mobilize soldiers to launch an attack on Votan at any time. After hearing the first 2 sentences, Morgan said silently in his heart. Then she heard the last sentence. The brow raised. How? See Gouzi, do you think I can't do it? Do you look down on me? Humphrey, I have to prove that I can do it. Although your talents are great. However, it must be below me. Well, I want to be on it. Morgan thought so. However, something is always wrong. Am I infected by the dog? Forget it. Quietly spoof for a bit of sex. Morgan decided to take revenge on Lot from Little. She walked over, looked at his waist. Hey, I know you are the most afraid of itching. Now, I'm going to scratch your itching. She took a few steps forward. Then, she heard Lot's voice again. After breathing behind my back for so long, does this silly Morgan really think I don't know? Does she really think that her voice can be concealed from the instinct of being a good knight? What is she going to do? Will it be to scratch my itch? Mom, it's itchy. I don't want to. Morgan felt frustrated. Damn, the dog knows what I do. At this time, Lot was still thinking in his heart. But, if I hide in this way, will she feel frustrated? You don't need to hide. I am very frustrated now. Forget it. Gritted my teeth and passed. I can't really make her sad, can I? Ma, if you choose the 10 best husbands in this world, then there must be me. You are not one of the top 10. In this world, no husband is better than you. After listening to Lot's heart, Morgan said silently. Then she continued to walk towards Lot. Come, come. She came over. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Hold back, hold back. Morgan stretched out his hand and put it on Lot's body. Oh, who attacked me? Lot could not go on as soon as he was about to say half of it, because he found that Morgan's hand was not on his itching at all. It was placed on his shoulder. Massage vigorously. Huh? Lot was dumbfounded, although his wife likes him very much. However, Morgan is a proud queen. Even when I couldn't stand begging for mercy every night before, it was the expression with my head up. Massage yourself. That's very rare. Hey, you didn't think about it, luscious dog. Morgan thought triumphantly in his heart. At the same time, she put her mouth to Lot's ear and said with a smile, Lot, you said you have worked so hard for so long. As your wife, of course, I am going to give you a massage. Well, how about it? Is strength okay? Of course. Lot narrowed his eyes comfortably, although, it feels a little strange. It seems that is better than what I taught. Morgan, who was supposed to be a concubine, turned into such a good wife and mother. Lot is really amazing.